First of all, introduce myself. I'm David Horton. I'm the president and CEO of Schweizer Helicopters in Fort Worth, Texas. I've got a couple of slides to show you kind of what we've accomplished in the last year and kind of where we want to go in 2024 and beyond. First of all, thanks for having me. We did establish a couple of new service centers during the year of 2024. Heli East in Poland. They're experienced in operating and maintaining Schweizers. They're also intending to operate several Schweizer helicopters in a training format. Heli Hollands, they're in the Netherlands. They have been a Schweizer service center for back when Schweizer was located in the New York area, and we reactivated the Heli Holland Service Center to help support us for all things in Europe. These guys are really proficient at not only the 300s but the 333s that operate in Europe. And the last one is Unionlet UK. Unionlet is going to be a representative Schweizer, primarily supporting countries in Eastern Africa. And so we're excited to have that group being a part of the Schweizer group. They have a rich history of being able to provide helicopters and support to a lot of countries like Kenya and Nigeria. Spare parts production, one of the things that we did when we first bought the business in 2018 was to reestablish the supply chain. The supply chain was really non-existent, and we were able to, over the period of 3 to 4 years, reestablish the supply chain. That was the primary focus in order to get the fleet operational. We've invested more than $15 million in parts and tooling since that time. And I included this chart. It's a chart we use in operations on a monthly basis. And what it is, it's the have and have nots. And so what we want to try to do is 90% of all the parts that we are either quoting to a customer, service center, or parts that a customer will actually fill as a sales order, that we want to have 90% of that in stock. And so as you can see, we do really pretty good. We track this again on a monthly basis, and we modify as necessary. The blue bar is the actual parts that we have in stock. The red in the middle is what's actually either quoted or on a sales order, and the gray is what we have available. So we're very proud of this. This was the first way that we can see to be in the marketplace and be successful, and it's going to lead into future helicopter production that we'll talk about in a bit. A couple of things, again, we're also very proud of. In 2023, we actually received our full unlimited production certificate for the 300C and CBI aircraft. This allowed us to be able to produce helicopters with minimal FAA oversight. Previously, while the FAA was super supportive of everything we did, specifically our Motto office in Fort Worth, we still had to have production schedules around the availability of the Motto inspectors as they validated that our quality system and that our aircraft operation sheets were correct. So having this certificate in place now allows us to better manage our schedules for our customers, so that we know when we have a helicopter to be delivered, we have better control over our schedule, at least from a production management aspect. On our crash-resistant fuel system, this is something that was mandated by the U.S. Congress in 2018. The Special Airworthiness Information Bulletin, SW17-31 Revision 1, required that all helicopters that were going to be operated in the United States and produced after April 5th of 2020 needed to have the crash-resistant fuel system, or a fuel system that meets the latest crash-resistant requirements. We started that process in late 2019. We just received our STC. Obviously, we had a pandemic in between the time we started and the time that we actually completed the process, but we're very happy with the results. The idea is that the tank is the same dimensional size with regards to how it attaches to the helicopter. So it's retrofittable to the A's and the B models and the older C's that still are in the field. So if we have a customer that's interested in retrofitting their helicopter with one of our crash-resistant fuel systems, that's possible. Today, we've really focused on new production for the C's and the CBIs for the U.S. Marketplace. Our first installation/deliverable for helicopter will happen this next month, March 2024. Our 145 repair station certificate, this is another big milestone that we achieved in 2023. The idea for us is that we wanted to be able to overhaul our main and tail rotor gearboxes. We want to expand it to include landing gear dampers and other items such as actuators. We do have the only gearbox test stand for main and tail rotor gearboxes in the world, and so what this allows us to do is to release these components back to the operators with no additional maintenance or inspection requirements needed. We can still authorize doing field overhauls, but there's a bit of continuing maintenance to be done on the transmissions once they've been refitted to the helicopter. If we run it through the test stand, it gets a printout with all the parameters that the transmission meets the design requirements, and there's no further maintenance requirements to be done. Our OEM certified helicopter program, we launched this in 2023. We want to definitely expand this program in 2024. There's really two levels. We'll talk about them a bit more in detail in just a minute. It's a refurbish or a refresh. Our helicopters do not have a calendar life on them per se. There's no time limit on any of the components for a Schweizer helicopter. We have to replace parts based on life limitations, and it's all based on hours. There's no RIN or there's no other cycle computation. It's just hours of operation. So what that allows us to do is we can take an older airframe and actually put new components on the airframes, refresh them, and sell them into the marketplace at about 2/3 or a little bit more of the retail price of a new helicopter. There's still, a marketplace for new helicopters. There's still plenty of people that would rather have a new helicopter than a refurbished helicopter, but we're finding out there's just as many outlets for refurbished helicopters as there ever has been. As you may or may not know, when you buy a used helicopter, you're always taking some level of risk. Our intention of doing this is to take a lot of that risk out of buying a used helicopter. The refurbished, I think it's a lot of words on here, but refurbished, you might think of it as we disassemble the entire helicopter. We do wiring is replaced as necessary, new interior, new main tail rotor blades. We have a new engine or overhauled engine with the 12 years available on the engine. That's important not for the U.S., but a lot of European countries where they may have engine limitations based on calendar time. So it's important that we deliver an international helicopter with the full 12-year life on the engine. Again, the airframe does not have any calendar restrictions, but the engine does in some operational territories around the world. The refresh is more just of a touch-up paint. We still do the new cabin and door plexiglass, new hardware where needed. We do a new interior. The engine, we want to have at least 60% of the engine life remaining, and the life-limited components, at least 50% of the life-limited components available for use. 2024 and beyond, we want to expand our 145 repair capabilities to include, other components that our customers may need, whether it's instrumentation or if it's components that like pitch change assemblies, where they may not be in a place where they have the tools to effectively install new bearings or things of that nature. We want to make sure we're very robust in what we do and what we provide in the overhaul capability. We are going to be expanding our sales force domestically as well as internationally in 2024. And that goes along with the next line item, where we want to align our service centers with future requirements. As we started out in this business, because we didn't have an established supply chain, there were many critical parts that customers had been waiting years for. That was the initial focus of our company, was to figure out who in our supply chain was going to build these parts, that we put our money into the supply chain and put our money into inventory so that we could get the fleet operational. We feel like we're maybe not at that apex where we feel like it's 100% covered all the time, but we feel really good about where we're at with regards to supporting the fleet and having spare parts. So now we're turning the page with all the accomplishments that we've been able to complete this year, to really focus on new production of new helicopters. And so our service centers, along with our sales force, what we're asking them to do going forward is help build the backlog of deliveries that we want to have in the future. We really want them to focus on new helicopters again. I believe there's a place for our refurbished helicopters. But we really want to focus on making sure that our new helicopters, we have a place for our new helicopters, and we have a place for them to go when we get them built. It helps us from a supply chain standpoint, because as you're building new helicopters, the supply chain is always building parts for not only new production, but they're building parts for your aftermarket support and the field at helicopters. Another thing that is really important to us in 2024 is improved manufacturability of parts. We actually inherited a fabulous product, and it's up to us to make sure that we keep the heritage and keep the greatness of the product alive. But one of the things we're finding out is, when the helicopter was designed and built in the 50s and 60s, the manufacturing capability was limited, and therefore you used a lot of castings in the production of these helicopters. We want to move away from castings as we can and go to machine parts. In a lot of cases, castings are a very long lead time item. You have to buy multiple quantities, multiple hundreds of quantities. And so it makes more sense for us to make this change from a manufacturing standpoint, to go from a casting-driven airframe to more of a machined part-driven airframe. And so that will actually reduce the actual price of the helicopter, because it's going to actually reduce the cost of the helicopter and the manufacturing part of the helicopter, as well as carrying costs that we would have to assume in our inventory. And then the last part is, we really want to finish our new digital display for our helicopters, where we actually would have a one display feature in our helicopter that would be standard. And what we intend to show on this is the airframe and the engine parameters that the helicopter pilot would need to safely operate the helicopter. So things like your dual tack, manifold pressure gauge. From the engine standpoint, you would have oil pressure, oil temperature. From the airframe standpoint, you would have fuel quantity, fuel pressure, things of that nature. We would also embody some caution flags for chip lights, things of that nature, as well as any kind of overspeed information that may be critical for us to do any one-off inspections, if in fact an overspeed or an event like that was actually experienced. So this will also benefit us in the manufacturing process, as well as the weight of the helicopter. We've anticipated it would help, around 10 to 12 pounds of reduction in weight, because now you're getting rid of cables, you're getting rid of bulky instruments. You're really just running, fairly small wire with sensors, and so our estimation is that it's going to save a bit of weight for our production going forward. it should also shorten the production time for our helicopters as we go forward too. We have introduced, as I had mentioned before, for the young man in the front row about the press release, and one of the ones we were super proud of for this year was the what we had been working on for about a year with Gallagher to negotiate prices for insurance for the Schweizer operators. In that, my request to them is that, you know, please don't. But we have a relationship with Gallagher. We do business with them. My request to them previously was that please don't take all piston engine or piston powered helicopters and spread the risk among them all evenly. Please look at the safety record of the Schweizer helicopters. Please look at the operability of the Schweizer helicopters, and as a request from us, see what you can do to develop a program for the Schweizer community where they would actually benefit from flying a helicopter that has a proven record of one of the lowest fatalities per 100,000 flight hours that's ever been seen. We estimate our fleet hours are getting close to 17 million flight hours on our fleet, and so there's a track record. There's a track record of good safety numbers, as well as airframes that are tough enough to withstand the abuse that they're going to get put up to every day. And so that was my ask. Gallagher came back and said, yes, we're going to do this. We rolled it out a couple of days ago. It was a bit earlier than what I think we wanted to, but nonetheless, it's here, and I'm hoping that our operators around the world will be able to experience some better rates for operating Schweizer helicopters. And that's all I have. Questions? Yeah. So this is a concept of helicopter that we are wanting to fund at some point. We have an approved rotor system that would actually support the kind of weight that we would talk about here. Obviously, a fully articulated hub. We would want to, have it a 4 to 5 place helicopter, have the same basic airframe, being either Jet A or 100 low lead, or the new 100 GUI powered airframe. So we have to come up with the funding for this. Schweizer, we have to earn our own way, and so as we start building 300Cs, 300 CBIs, and we start generating additional interest, we want to be able to develop this product, but we're going to need cash to do it. Yes, sir?
What is the worldwide Schweizer fleet?
Worldwide fleet, we estimate, small helicopters, they don't have a lot of details around them. Everybody can tell you where every S-92 is in the world, right? But every S-300, not so much. We estimate somewhere between 1,200 and 1,500 that are operational around the world. Yes, sir.
How many have you now built and delivered to the market since?
I'm sorry? Yeah. Oh.
Hi, David. Sorry, Tony Osborne, Avweek. How many aircraft have you actually delivered now since being reborn, essentially?
Yeah, since 2021, we've delivered 12 helicopters, 12 new helicopters. We've delivered 3 or 4 refurbished helicopters.
And none of those are in the US because of...
No, yes. I shouldn't say that. There are 2 refurbished helicopters that we did deliver in the US because they, were submitted. They had their airworthiness issued long before this SAIB came about. Again, the SAIB had a date specific where every new helicopter manufactured after this date had to meet that requirement. So these helicopters were manufactured prior to that, but they did go through our refurb program.
Where are the refurbished aircraft coming from? Are they in your stock? Are you buying them and then refurbishing them?
A bit of both. So we will do, if a customer, which I've already had a couple ask me about it today, where they've had helicopters that that they've had sitting in their barn, and they want to get them, refurbished and going again. So what we ask them to do is send us a list of the parts that they need, a list of the parts that they have with time remaining, and then we can effectively come up with a quote to get the helicopter operational. We also have acquaintances in the finance world where if the helicopter's owned, then you can finance the funds to get the helicopter refurbed and going again if in fact customers need that. A lot of them, they have enough financial resources to do it, and now that they understand that we can provide this service, we think that we're going to be doing more customer refurbs than we actually will be doing of our own. But the short answer is yes, we have airframes that we can provide, whether it's Cs or CBIs, and we also take customer-owned airframes to put through the program as well. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Brent Bundy, Vertical Magazine. It's been a common theme of all the OEMs this week during these press conferences. It doesn't matter the size of the OEM, that the supply chain issues have been a challenge for everybody. How has that affected Schweizer, especially as you're moving away from the casted parts into the machine?
That is actually going to be better. One thing I would tell you is the Schweizer supply chain, they treat us more like partners than anybody else. And I think I would like to be able to say that we as a company, because we are small, we have to rely on a relationship with our vendors and our supply chain team members. And because we do that, and because we're open, we're transparent, we are upfront with them, they have a tendency more to take more risks for us. And when I say risk, build things in advance, take on projects where they have to add equipment. They see the same future that we see. And so from the casting part of it to machining part of it, there's not, that supply chain part of it is actually better than what it has been. And some of the big parts like drive shafts and lower coupling drive shafts, where we've actually developed longer term relationships with these specific suppliers, it's really working out really well, and we're very appreciative of them every day. Some of the other supply chain issues that we will have, and it's more of a timing. It's not that we can't get it. We just have to be better forecasters. So things like bearings, for one, where, you need to make sure that you are on top of your consumption and that you're on top of your reorder points, and that you do have a pulse on what your vendors are going to provide and when. As some bearings that I'm sure that all of our OEMs would attest to, they'll have a 52 to 70 week lead time. And so it's incumbent on us to make sure that we know what we need and when, and that we have orders in place way prior to, running down to the last bearings or last set of bearings. And that has been a problem, but I think, to your point about the supply chain, all of us in the OEM world have experienced some of that, where we think we're going to get something and then we don't, and then we're unpleasantly surprised, and we didn't have a good future. We didn't have a good view of the future about what was happening. But again, for me being part of Schweizer and representing our little company, I think it's really incumbent on us to make sure that we're doing all that we can do to find out what's happening in the marketplace.
Quick follow-up kind of along the supply chain issue is for the new panel, have you identified a partner?
We have one, but we're still working with them. It's really a preference. The partner we're working with right now already has something that's DO 160 approved, which is a requirement for helicopter operations. The thing that we're trying to figure out is how do we get the funding, or not how do we get the funding, we know how we get the funding. The funding and the timing around a redesign based on inputs, as we want the visual aesthetics to look more like what I showed you in the picture. That's really what we want. We want something with an overlay that really looks good. And what they have, while it's really functional, it's not, in our opinion, it's not as pleasing to the eye as what we want. We want something that really looks state of the art. The helicopter design in of itself has proven itself for the last 60 years. So that's why there hasn't been a lot of changes within the, the structure and the way the helicopter's built or the way it flies or the way it operates. But the display and the instrumentation is something that we can improve upon. I just want to make sure when we do it, that we do it the right way and that we have the very best that we can be before we do it.
And Kurt Epstein, AIN. So I'm someone who remembers seeing the Schweizer helicopter from the Jacques Cousteau days, and seeing that is kind of really fascinating. Do you have any kind of timeline on this? I know funding being what it is, but nothing. It's just pie in the sky right now.
We don't. It's something that we've talked about and we've put a lot of thought into it, and we kind of have a plan outlined, but we need some funding to put together just kind of the experimental to make sure what we think will work. But it's something that we want to keep a forefront. It's, from our company standpoint, it's something that drives us. It's something that we look at and say, we really want to do that. How do we get there? So I think, for any company, having something that you can push forward to the future is really a great thing. If you're not really driving towards something, what are you doing, right? So this is one thing that we want to drive towards. We have other things, in the UAS field. We've talked to several different companies about partnering with them. We just haven't found the right fit yet, but we believe our airframe, at least our drivetrain, and the robustness of what we have would fit in a lot of different UAS, UAV, pieces of equipment. But again, that's a partnership thing that we haven't found the right fit yet, and we're open to, companies that are really good at integrating, companies that are good at writing software. We can provide the airframe and the engineering to help us get the vehicle there. We got to find the right partner. Yes, sir.
How's the backlog in orders looking, and any further thoughts on S333 or even the 434, or is this sort of the
No. So the primary, if you go back to the last slide where I talked about 2024 and beyond, we need to work on our backlog. We have a backlog of a few helicopters, but that's going to be the focus. Again, we put together the foundation of the business in the last year and a half. We've got a lot of programs that we're chasing. The idea is to put the focus on that and get the backlog where it needs to be. Again, I feel very good about the execution part of it, even with the supply chain and the issues that may or may not happen there. What we've got to do is make sure that we got a backlog and that we start being a market influencer.
And just out of interest, how many airframes do you think you've returned to flight since the foibles of the Sikorsky era, and brought them back and perhaps rescued from being grounded?
That is a great question. I don't have any hard date on it, but I do have several emails about people who have said, we're so excited that you're here. Thank you for selling us parts. We now have a helicopter that's operational, and we are very grateful. And so more than a handful. I don't know how many it is, but I can tell you from the feedback, at least from some of our customers, has been very positive about providing parts for this great platform. As far as the 333 goes, if you don't mind me answering that, we still believe there's a future for the 333. What we have to do is we have to secure an order, and I believe in the next 18 months we'll secure an order big enough to where we can start production. That'll be a next big undertaking. Again, we believe that it does have a future in the world. As our sales and marketing team, is developed in 2024, I really strongly believe that we're going to get some positive traction on the 333 front. That's okay. It's okay.
I mean, how much of it is going to be foreign sort of military training and so on? How much of this is flying schools? How much of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's all kind of mixed up. I mean, about a third of our business, and I think other OEMs is about the same. About a third of our business is in the U.S., and the rest of it is around the world. Our brand, our helicopter, the price point in which we sell them, the availability of components and availability of training young mechanics and young pilots. It fits in a lot of the foreign militaries or the foreign, smaller foreign military pilot training needs, so to speak. So I really believe that we're going to make good inroads in that as we go forward. The 333 is a bit higher, but the 333 is a really a great training platform because you have 3 across. There's unobstructed view for the center seat occupant. It's stadium seated, so the center student can learn between the dialogue of the instructor pilot and the student pilot, and they can actually visualize what's happening. And so their learning becomes, I wouldn't say exponential, but their learning comes a lot faster because while they're not trying to fly the helicopter, they are absorbing a lot of the nuances that are going to be needed for their training to be successful. So.
One last one from me.
Yeah, sure.
On the machining rather than cast and forging, what kind of saving can you actually achieve on a?
Oh, I have not quantified it as like the total bill, but I know that there's a couple of bell cranks that I think when I have them machined as a finished part, it's less than what I would have to pay for a casting before any machining is done. So I don't know how to answer that because we really don't have the full scope. We're just working on a handful of parts right now. The idea is that we get a path and that the FAA is comfortable with what we're doing, and then we should be able to go fairly quickly on the remaining balance of the components on the airframe. And then I would know, kind of a percentage about savings based on going to this kind of manufacturing process. Again, thank you so much for coming to this press briefing. It means a lot to us. Thank you.